Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. I'm here to talk to you about the latest episode of Star Trek Prodigy. It was called Mind Walk. As it begins, the construct, also known as the weapon, has taken over the protostar as the Dauntless bears down on it, and it takes off at warp. On the Dauntless, Janeway is shoved into a closet after having been knocked out by the Diviner's hench lady, and her comm badge is taken to her quarters to make it look like she's just hanging out under a do not disturb in case anyone looks for her. The Dauntless itself chases the protostar and somehow merges its warp bubble with theirs and is firing on it, which I'm not sure how all that is possible. I didn't know that ships could be pursued at warp. I've talked about this before, much less have their warp bubble invaded by another warp bubble. I don't know where the writers are getting that. But anyway, while this is happening, Zero and Dahl use their telepathy, Dahl having telepathy because of some of his enhanced DNA from other species, to try to communicate with the Admiral aboard the Dauntless. And what actually happens, though, is that Dahl winds up swapping minds with her, and it was quite hilarious. Because, it was pretty easy for Janeway to acclimate to her surroundings because she's a Starfleet Admiral and they're a bunch of kids, but for Dahl to try to acclimate to the environment on the Dauntless and not be found out as not Admiral Janeway in reality was very funny. He's walking around going, "Hello, Starfleet person," to people walking by, and he tried to get in the captain's chair and he fell out, and he hates coffee apparently, and he kept calling the Andorian guy, or he called the Andorian officer antennas, and he did a thing where he was like, "Teamwork makes the dream work," and it was so cringe. He was just funny as hell to observe. And Kate Mulgrew just did an excellent job playing Dahl, trying to not be found out, as being himself in her body. It was hilarious. The good news, though, is that our crew gets to explain to Janeway, who's in the body of Dahl, everything that's been happening, finally. But a subsequent attempt to reverse the swap the same way they enacted it originally doesn't work. The Admiral, still in Dahl's body, goes down to where the weapon is and encounters her hologram self in a really cool scene during which the Admiral is able to restore the holodeck's memories, including her memories of the previous crew, as well as purge the control of the construct from the program. And there were some cool visuals because at first we see Admiral Janeway as Dahl walking into the room and addressing the hologram. But as the hologram starts to figure out who it is, there was a sweep, around sort of where we come around and see, instead of Dahl standing there, it's Admiral Janeway, because we're seeing it through the perspective of the hologram who recognizes that it's Janeway. And it was really cool. After that, back on the bridge of the protostar, Janeway brings up the salamander thing when she was turned into a salamander, when told that she's going to have to do a hull walk in order to touch Dahl, who will also have to do a hull walk or whatever, to try to get back into her own body. But when Dahl in her body tries to get to the hull to enact the plan, he's apprehended by his crew because they think he's crazy. They think Janeway's crazy. They don't know what's going on. But then the Diviner goes and releases Dahl as Janeway from sick bay because he doesn't realize it's Dahl. And he wants her to succeed at reaching the protostar because that's the only way his plan will be fulfilled. His plan to destroy the Federation is if the Dauntless makes contact with protostar. So the spacewalk ends up happening. And when Dahl, as Janeway, is tractor beamed back to the Dauntless once the crew discovers that she's outside the ship, she and Dahl weren't actually able to physically touch. Janeway, as Dahl, hits her body with a stunning phaser blast, which was continuous. And it created a conduit, which enabled the mind swap. And I was a little dubious about exactly how that would work. The beam is touching Janeway on one end, it's touching the phaser on the other end. Dahl is touching the phaser. Therefore, the telepathy worked because they were touching. I don't know. They didn't need to touch to go the other way. It just was a little dubious on the science there. Anyway, they mind swap back. Of course, Janeway is immediately put in the brig upon her arrival back in the Dauntless because her crew doesn't know what's going on. And that's where the episode ended. I really liked this episode. Kate Mulgrew doing Doll in Janeway's body was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. She just did an excellent job of being goofy and awkward and strange. And you got to hand it to the writers because they wrote it all and it all worked. It was just great. And the guy that plays Doll did an excellent job of playing Janeway in Doll's body, completely different from his regular character. So it was just really good all around. And I liked it because it was, once again, more of a one-off type episode where, the serialized story is there in the background, but there was this one-off adventure that wasn't just, hey, we're running from the Dauntless. They were, dealing with an actual situation of the mind swap, and it was causing actual ramifications in the plot. So it was really cool. I really liked this episode, despite the fact that I was dubious on some of the science. And the best thing about it is that now Janeway knows what's happening. She knows that they can't contact the protostar because of the construct. So I thought that was an important development as we get towards the end of the season. So yeah, that's really it. It was just an excellent episode, beautifully animated once again. The other characters were great in this as well. Rock Talk, Jacob, Gwen, they all had excellent lines and excellent moments. It's just a really good show, and this was just a really good episode. So there you go. Okay, I'm gonna get out of here. I'll be back to review the next episode once it's released. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.